Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLuga. Thanks so much for being here Friday, April 4th, getting this morning kicked off with some Mason Graham draft talk. There's been some questions about whether Mason Graham presents the best value for the Jaguars at 5 overall. And, you know, I've been very clear. I think if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falls, they should probably be the pick. I've also said, if there's a scenario where the Jaguars can trade down and get a haul, I'm good with that as well. But I think the most likely scenario is that the Jaguars walk away from the first round with Mason Graham as their pick at 5 overall. He kind of fits the mold of what you've seen James Gladstone and the Rams value over the last couple years. He's not the same player as a Kobe Turner or a Braden Fisk. In my opinion, he's a much more well-rounded prospect than both of those guys were coming out. And so you've seen some questions about, well, he has short arms, 32-inch arms. Oh, well, he came in at 296 at the combine. And I want to talk about, is he overrated? The 32-inch arms, yes, that's short, right? John Shipley and I were talking about it, and Gus and pretty much everybody yesterday. 32-inch arms, 12th percentile among interior defensive linemen. Those are short arms. People calling them T-Rex arms. He does have T-Rex arms, I guess you could say. Does that matter on the interior? I think if you watch the tape and you see him unable to make first contact, then it matters. Is that what I see on tape? Not at all. He consistently wins with his hands. To win with your hands, you have to have long enough arms. And I think with his combination of traits, the explosiveness, the natural leverage, the ability to hand fight and land your punches, land your hands in the spot that you want, I see that consistently. And I don't think that's going to change at the next level because, again, he is explosive. He has natural leverage. And he just knows timing and placement with his hands at a very high level. So I don't see that being an issue one bit. So I think there's a lot of guys in the league that you can look at and say they don't have great arm length. And I can't believe we're back having to talk about this, now that Trent Baalke's gone. But there's a lot of guys that don't have great arm length. If they're able to make up for that with other traits, it really doesn't matter. And I think Mason Graham, his explosiveness out of his stance, and again, his technicality with his hand timing and placement more than makes up for not having 33-inch plus arms on the interior. I absolutely do. I also think his strength throughout his frame and his flexibility, the way he can mirror his hands and his feet, or marry his hands and his feet, I should say, it's pretty impressive. And then you talk about him coming in at 296. He didn't play at 296. I mean, just look at him. Look at him on tape. That is not a 296-pound player. He was playing over 310, and he came in at his pro day at 306. I think he had dropped weight just training, and he wasn't able to run due to a minor little nick that he got during training, and so he was light. I think he was going to run very fast if he was able to run, but he had the minor injury, and so it is what it is. It hasn't been the best pre-draft process for him. I think his 2023 tape overall was a little bit stronger than 2024, but anybody who's going to sit here and tell you that 2024 tape for him wasn't overly impressive is just flat out wrong. He was awesome both of the last 2 years. I think 2023 maybe a little more dominant, but he was dealing with injury throughout the 2024 season as well. So he's not a 296-pound defensive tackle. He probably is going to play around 310 in my estimation. And yeah, he does have short arms. Does that matter? No. You've seen so many explosive players, not even just on the interior, but at edge as well. The arm length just doesn't matter when you have the level of explosiveness and technical prowess and strength that he brings to the table. And I think it's fair to sit here and say, well, when you talk about stacking, is it possible that you could get a really good defensive tackle at the top of round 2. It is possible. It's also possible that everyone you think is a potential game wrecker at defensive tackle is gone by the time you pick in round 2. I think there's going to be a lot of defensive tackles off the board before the 36th pick. I really do. And I think, this is a great interior defensive line class. I don't think anyone is as close to, or anyone is close to Mason Graham as a prospect. There's a lot of guys I like. I really like Derek Harmon. I really like Kenneth Grant. I really like Walter Nolan for his, interior penetration ability. Darius Alexander. The list really does go on and on. But none of these guys are close, in my opinion, from an evaluation standpoint as a prospect to Mason Graham. And I'd dive into Mason Graham a little bit more, right? Dominant as soon as he stepped on the field in college football. And that's one of those things where over the last couple of years, you scout, whoever it may be from Michigan on that defensive side of the ball, Chris Jenkins, Mikey Sanders still, all these different guys. You scout them and you're like, damn, who is 55? Who is 55? And it's Mason Graham. And that's one of those signs to me, like when I'm watching other players and I just can't stop looking at who is that dude. And that's been Mason Graham for the last 3 years, especially 2022 and 2023. As a true freshman, I mean, he didn't play a ton. He had 303 snaps, but he came in and he made an impact on those snaps. There's no question about it. And then 2023, it was something special to watch. I think you can say the same thing about his 2024 tape overall. Really good seasons for Mason Graham. And he pops off the tape. I think you initially see that explosiveness off the ball, and then you see the hand, like he's able to hit you with clubs. He's able to hit you with club rip, and he has such good agility laterally where he can fake you getting going one direction, hit you with that hand, get back across your body, and has the flexibility and bend throughout his frame that's really rare at his size to kind of be able to win on the outside shoulder against guards after setting them up inside. And then he can also do the reverse and go inside. And he can also create push. And we're talking about pass rushing, push in the pass rush department with a bull rush. So you combine the ability to win on the outside arc, outside shoulder, inside shoulder, and through the guard. That's pretty special. And he's a guy that just doesn't really miss tackles, which is pretty rare for defensive linemen. I think the Jaguars are a team that needs to be better at tackling. I think Mason Graham would bring that to them. I also just think his ability to generate pass rush from a physical skill set standpoint is pretty special. It really is. And that would be huge for Josh Hines Allen, huge for Trayvon Walker. And we're talking about building this thing out long term. I think getting a Mason Graham, a guy who I think will easily come in and probably be a top 15 defensive tackle from the jump and have the ability to potentially jump into that top 5 over the first 3, 4, 5 years of his career, certainly top 10 at the position, and be an interior penetrator, but also someone who can be an elite run defender because he is really strong. He has a great anchor. He's not always, I think his best usage is going to be as a penetration style guy, but when it's 3rd and short, 4th and short, whatever it may be, and you feel like you need to get a stop, you want Mason Graham on the field because he can hold up against doubles. He can certainly win against single blocks, and any interior defensive lineman is at times going to lose against a double team. That's just the nature of the business. That's the nature of the beast. But Mason Graham overall is pretty darn good against double teams. You see many times on tape where they're trying to double team him and move him off the line, and they're just not getting any traction against him. So to me, Mason Graham, pretty special. I think statistically pretty special when you look at the stops, the pressures, the quarterback hits, the hurries, even the sack production is there. And it's not like he's been a double-digit sack guy in college. Most interior defensive linemen aren't, especially in a program like Michigan, where he's asked to do so many different things and kind of create for others at the same time as well. But to me, it's a no-brainer type of pick. I think he's explosive as hell. I think he can win through you. He can win on your outside shoulder, inside shoulder. He can set you up, and he's going to be stout against the run as well. And I think he's a high character player, high character prospect. He's a former big time recruit. He's only 21 years old. I just think every single thing stacks in the right direction for him, outside of the fact that he hasn't really been able to participate in the pre-draft process from a on-field standpoint so far. He's got the goods, man. I think that he's going to be a really, really good NFL player for a long time, and the Jaguars could use that in the biggest way. So if Mason Graham is the pick at 5, I don't think anybody should really criticize that. He's the number 4 prospect on my board. I've got Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham. Look, the running back, in my opinion, the value's not there in first round, and you just have such a deep running back class. As deep as this defensive tackle class is, the running back class, the depth in the running back class just blows it out of the water. And, positional value does come into play. If I have 2 guys in the same tier, which I do with Ashton Genty and Mason Graham, I'm going to favor the player that plays a more valuable position from a monetary standpoint. And there's no question that interior defensive line makes a whole lot more money than running back. So it presents better value. I think getting him under, contract for the next 5 years, essentially, if you include the 5th-year option on a inexpensive deal, would be huge for this defense. I think it'd be huge for the team. And as much as you want to maybe say, well, should they just draft the best offensive lineman? I wouldn't be against that. I wouldn't be against Will Campbell. But at the same time, I think Mason Graham's a better player. I have less questions about his projection to the next level. And you look at winning championships, defensive front is about as important as it can get when it comes to winning championships. I think Mason Graham would be a great pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if it's not Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or a trade down, I really hope Mason Graham is the pick at 5 overall. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.